and you're listening to the Chiefs Podcast Network. Stuff for today's episode, we're going to take a look at the trade deadline and the news and rumors surrounded by the Kansas City Chiefs, as well as taking a look forward to the game against the Titans on Sunday night. So let's go ahead and get right into it. For trade deadline news, Kansas City, obviously, they traded for Kadarius Toney last Thursday, sending over a compensatory third and a sixth round pick to the Giants in trade for Kadarius Toney. Now we'll see if Kadarius Toney plays at all this week. I know Andy Reid said in his presser that they're trying to try to work him in gradually, and obviously they haven't practiced yet, so they have no idea what to expect, how well he'll take in the playbook, and whatnot. So we'll see if he plays at all against the Titans. I'd expect him to probably not, just so he can get a little bit more time learning the playbook and kind of the system that they have so far. So we'll see anything, and you'll hear that here if he does end up playing. But in other news, Kansas City is looking to trade for a defensive end. At least that's what the reports have been coming out from the higher ups. One name that has popped up a lot has been Josh Allen, and Kansas City has called the Jags about trading for him. We'll see if anything happens around that. Again, the trade deadline will be done by today at 3 o'clock Arrowhead time. So we'll see if anything happens there. Another one to look forward is Rojo. We'll see if he gets traded or released anytime today. If he does get traded, I wouldn't imagine it be for anything too crazy. I could see that being for like a sixth or seventh. Other than that, they could just end up straight up releasing him, which could happen anytime. As far as anything else for news like that, I don't see anything, but if anything else does come up, you can be sure that I will have it here. Taking a look toward the game, obviously Kansas City was on their bye week this week after playing the San Francisco 49ers, where they won 44-23, which saw the first pair of Chiefs receivers go over 100 yards for the first time since 2000. For retrospect, I wasn't born yet when that happened, and I am almost 20 years old at this point. Again, Juju Smith-Schuster had over 124 yards. Valdez-Scantling had 111. Kelsey, so close. He was 2 yards away from having 100 yards. They tried to get it to him on a little shovel pass, and he dropped it, but he ended up with 98 yards. And, we were very close to get three players over 100 yards. Hardman and Smith-Schuster, along with Watson, all had touchdown receptions. Mahomes threw for 423 yards and a pick, which was on the opening series, and really was a great play by the safety for the 49ers, Hufanga. As far as rushing more yards go, Pacheco got the start against the Niners and had 8 carries for 43 yards, with his longest being a 17-yard run. Edwards-Helaire took the back seat for this game and had 6 carries, 32 yards, and the touchdown, which was a 16-yard run in the red zone. Hardman went off this game, 3 total touchdowns, 2 of them rushing, and 1 of them was receiving. The impact he had on this game was pretty insane. A lot of the sweeps and motions that he usually does, but he was able to get home with a lot of them. Had 28 yards rushing out of the total and had 32 of them receiving with 4 catches on 4 targets. So it'll be interesting to see if they try to integrate him more doing that kind of stuff, because he's pretty much a gadget receiver in a lot of the ways that the stuff that works well for him is those jet sweeps, is those kind of backfield handoff flips to him. So you would think they'd want to try to get that to him more and see what else you can do. Now, as far as the way the receivers have been gelling with the offense so far, you can tell every week they've improved a lot. This is the first time in, I believe, Smith-Schuster's career that he'd had over 100 yards in back-to-back games. So obviously he is getting a higher level of play than he usually has. So it'll be interesting to see if he can continue his development with the Chiefs offense. Valdez-Scantling again had over 111 yards. We'll see if he continues to be that deep threat. He had a 57-yard route that he got from Mahomes, which looks pretty good. I mean, you can tell that Mahomes is still trying not to overthrow his receivers a little bit. He's done that a couple times earlier in the season, but this time he was able to connect with Valdez-Scantling multiple times on deep routes. As far as the rest of the team, McKinnon had a huge 35-yard gain or 34-yard gain off of a screen that was a 3rd and 20. So his playmaking ability is pretty insane. I'm pretty lucky to have him. Obviously, he's Andy Reid did say that all the running backs have set specific plays that they run, and that they kind of have their own things that they do. And McKinnon is a little bit different. He's a great pass blocker. That's another thing that a lot of people don't give him enough credit for. He can pass block really well, and those screens and stuff, he can get out there a lot like a receiver can. So having him on those screens and stuff helps a lot. Now you're facing against a team in the Titans that they kind of struggled a little bit this season. They're 5-2 despite their struggles. Their two losses coming against the Bills and the Giants, both in week 1 and 2 of the season. Malik Willis got his first start last week against the Texans, where they won 17-10, although he threw for 55 yards. I just don't see that him starting this week. I think that Ryan Tannehill is healthy enough to play. We'll see how that goes. I think he was close to playing last week, and they just decided that it was too close, that they were going to head and start Willis. Although, despite Willis's lack of air yards, Derrick Henry made up for in rushing yards, 219 yards on 32 attempts, and 2 touchdowns. So he carried the entirety of the offense on his back. Now that'll be something to look forward to with Kansas City's defense. They have so far this season have done really well against the run. They've stopped a lot of good running backs, and mostly the problem is their passing defense, which against the Titans, they don't really have anybody to really worry about. And not to mean that as an insult, but you have Robert Woods, and outside of that, their rookie receiver Traylon Burks is hurt, and they don't really have much outside of that. And so we'll see how Kansas City fares against the passing game of the Titans. Obviously, they're going to try to get through Derrick Henry as much as they can. And so we'll see if Kansas City's defense can indeed hold Derrick Henry into, less than, I don't know, 80 yards, maybe under 100, if that's possible for this defense, which I think it could be. And I think that's how you stop the Titans at this point, because they're kind of one-dimensional at this point. I mean, I haven't really seen them do too much craziness throwing the ball. So we'll see how that works out. And again, the Titans have the 2 losses against the Giants, who are 5-2 as well, and the 6-1 Bills, who Kansas City has also lost to, but that was a 24-20 game. So we'll see what Kansas City can do against this Titans team. Again, the Titans did trade away A.J. Brown, who was their top receiver for the last few years. They traded him to the Eagles, who are 7-0 with him, and he caught 3 touchdown passes Sunday. So, I think they're missing him quite a bit from what it looks like. Again, but they're 5-2. Their defense has done a pretty good job with points wise. Again, the asterisk next to that would be the Bills game, where they allowed 41 points, but the offense really wasn't helping them out a whole lot. A lot of their games have been pretty close. The Raiders in week 3 was a 24-22 game. The Colts in week 4 were 24-17. The next week in week 5, right before their bye week, was 21-17. Then they played the Colts, and that was a 19-10 game. And then obviously this last week against the Texans was a 17-10 game. Looking for totals for this game and where the defenses and offenses rank Kansas City so far. Again, 5-2 at home. Both teams record against the spread. Kansas City is 2-4-1 for whatever e-bettors out there, if that means anything. In terms of points per game, this Kansas City offense is number 1. They're first. Without Tyreek Hill, without those huge explode. Well, actually, they have more big game plays than they did with Tyreek Hill last year. Now they're 23rd in points allowed per game. They are second in total game yards per game. They are second in passing yards per game. They are 23rd in rushing yards per game, and they are 26th in yards allowed, and they're 15th in turnover differential, compared to the Titans, who are 24th in points per game. They're 9th in points allowed. So their defense, pretty much their strong point of this entire team, although they're 32nd in total yards per game, and they're 31st in passing yards per game, and they're 9th in rushing yards per game, and they're 15th in yards allowed per game. So, we've seen what Kansas City has done to predominantly high-tier defenses. Again, we saw what they did against the 49ers. They dropped 44 points on what you can convince me that's a lot better team a lot better defense than what we're going to face against the Titans. Obviously, a main threat would be Jeffrey Simmons on that defensive line. Looking for him would be probably your biggest threat against the offensive line. Again, they're 15th in yards allowed. So we'll see how rushing yards, they're 9th. So, we'll see how they fare against the running back by committee that Kansas City has in Pacheco, McKinnon, Edwards-Helaire. And, we'll just see how they fare against that. I think they do pretty good. I think they'll do fairly well because you don't know how much Kansas City will try to run the ball when the passing yards defense is 31st. So I'd expect a lot of the screens. I could expect a lot of just short mid routes, like with Smith Schuster taking quite a few, maybe 5 yard slants for 20 something yards. I could see that. So that'll be something to look to see for this game. In coming up for trade news and stuff. Still haven't seen anything else as far as any other rumors. Still just the Josh Allen stuff. Again, the trade deadline ends at 3:00 Arrowhead time. Time to get into the predictions for this game. I think for stats from Mahomes, I think he passes for over 300 yards. I'm thinking 2 touchdowns. For Edwards-Helaire and a rushing game, I think Pacheco probably gets the nod again this week. I just think they want to get him more opportunities again. I think he probably carries the ball around 9-10 times for about 60 yards. Following them, I think Edwards-Helaire has about 40 yards on about 7 carries. Then I think they get McKinnon a couple of carries for probably about 10, 11 yards. I think he'll be more in passing game, screen stuff. Against the Niners, they had him pass blocking Nick Bosa, that had him chopping. He got a penalty on it, which was a touchdown to Juju Smith-Schuster that got called back toward the end of that first half. But it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Kansas City still won by a large margin at that. I think Kansas City wins this one 31-14, 31-20-ish probably. That's my predictions. You can leave your predictions in the comment as well as what you think for trade deadline news. Do you think Kansas City makes any other moves at this point? Obviously, they've already made Kadarius Toney. Do you think they deal Rojo? Do they just release him, or do they get Josh Allen from the Jags? It'll be interesting to see in the next handful of hours what Kansas City will do. That'll be it for me here at the Chiefs Podcast Network. I will see you if there's any other news, rumors, anything to come out with when we are back. That'll be me saying so long here from the Chiefs Podcast Network, and I will see you next time.